Every gardener knows the rule: compost needs turning. It's the sacred ritual: fork in, flip the pile, sweat a little, and wait for that earthy reward months later. But what if you stopped turning altogether? What if you simply buried your compost and walked away? That's exactly what I did. And what I learned from that experiment has permanently changed the way I build soil. Because, as it turns out, when you bury compost instead of turning it, nature does the work faster, cleaner, and more efficiently than we ever could. The problem with traditional compost piles is they lose more than they give. Let's start with why I even tried this in the first place. Traditional composting works, it's proven science, but it's also labor-intensive and wasteful. Every time you turn a pile, you release nitrogen as ammonia gas lose moisture and watch valuable carbon evaporate as carbon dioxide. If you live in a dry or windy climate, that pile can dry out overnight, halting microbial activity until you water it again. Even when everything goes right, you still have to wait 2 to 3 months for finished compost, and then haul it across the garden to mix into your beds. I wanted a simpler, more efficient system, one that didn't need constant attention, didn't lose nutrients to the air, and built soil where my plants actually grow. That's when I tried trench composting, or as I now call it, the buried compost method. Burying compost turns your soil into the compost bin itself. So, instead of piling up organic matter above ground, I started digging these shallow trenches, about 30 to 40 centimeters deep, right in the garden beds. Into those trenches went everything: kitchen scraps, garden trimmings, chopped weeds, and even spoiled mulch. No fancy layering, no turning, and honestly, no compost bin at all. The process is, well, quite simple. You just fill the trench halfway with your green waste, things like vegetable peels, fresh leaves, and grass clippings. Then add a layer of dry, carbon-rich material like shredded cardboard, straw, or dried leaves. This helps maintain a balance that's pretty close to the ideal 30-to-1 carbon-to-nitrogen ratio. After that, you top it all off with the soil you dug out, tamp it lightly, and then, just let the microbes handle the rest. In about 3 weeks, the topsoil settles as the organic matter underneath starts breaking down. Within 2 months, the trench transforms into dark, sweet-smelling humus that's fully integrated with the surrounding soil. The difference is striking. The buried compost becomes part of the earth itself, feeding plants directly rather than sitting in a pile waiting for redistribution. The results were better than any hot compost pile I've ever made. What surprised me most was how quickly the results appeared. Plants near the buried compost zones were visibly stronger and greener within weeks. When I pulled a few back, I saw something remarkable: a dense web of fine roots growing straight into the decomposing zone. The roots weren't burning or rotting, they were thriving. Why? Well, because decomposition underground is cooler, steady, and aerobic. The soil acts as a natural insulator, maintaining consistent moisture and temperature. Microbial life doesn't surge and crash like it does in a hot pile. Instead, it builds a stable population that processes organic matter efficiently. By mid-season, those same trenches had become nutrient tunnels, soft, moist, and alive with earthworms. Worms absolutely adore buried compost because it provides both food and protection from surface dryness. Their constant movement aerates the soil, leaving behind castings that further enrich the area. In one experiment, I buried kitchen waste along one side of a tomato bed while leaving the other side unamended. The difference was undeniable. The compost-side plants had thicker stems, darker leaves, and produced fruit nearly 2 weeks earlier. That's not a coincidence. That's biology at work. The genius of this system is that nothing goes to waste. Traditional compost piles release nutrients into the air and require you to manually transport the finished product. In the buried system, nutrients stay locked in the soil profile. As decomposition progresses, soluble nutrients like nitrogen, potassium, and calcium move laterally and downward, right into the active root zone. You're essentially preloading the soil's nutrient bank. When roots reach that buried layer, they tap into a steady, slow-release source of fertility that lasts the entire growing season. It's the same principle behind natural forest ecosystems. Organic matter falls, decomposes beneath the surface, and feeds the next generation of plants from below. By burying compost, you're copying that process, just a little faster and more deliberate. For this to work optimally, the depth ratio and moisture levels matter. If you bury material too shallow, that is, less than 20 centimeters, it can attract pests. Too deep, more than 50 centimeters, and oxygen drops, which slows decomposition. The sweet spot is 30 to 40 centimeters deep, allowing airflow through the soil pores while, keeping smells and pests away. Moisture is equally important. If your organic material is very dry, just lightly water each layer before covering it. The decomposition process depends on microbes, and those microbes really need moisture to function. If you're composting in beds with active crops, dig your trenches between the rows. This is called trench rotation. While one row is growing, another is decomposing underground. Next season, you switch them. Over time, your entire bed becomes rich, loose, and self-fertile without ever adding store-bought compost. In small gardens, you can use a pit system where you dig one pit at a time and fill it every few weeks. As each pit finishes decomposing, move to the next spot. It's a continuous, low-effort way to handle waste and build soil simultaneously. After a full season of experimenting, I noticed that my soil texture had changed dramatically. The beds where I buried compost became darker and more crumbly. Water retention improved, meaning less irrigation even during dry spells. Earthworms multiplied. Most importantly, my plants were more resilient, less prone to nutrient stress and disease. Unlike hot composting, there was no odor, no nitrogen loss, and no need to haul or turn anything. The soil became the system, and that's the ultimate lesson here. Nature doesn't turn its compost, it buries it. Forests, grasslands, and natural ecosystems build humus in place, layer by layer, quietly and continuously. If you're tired of managing compost piles and wasting energy on a system that leaks nutrients, try burying your compost instead. You'll feed your soil directly, conserve moisture, and let biology handle the rest. It's low effort, zero waste, and incredibly effective. Over time, you'll notice that your garden becomes easier to manage because the fertility is built right into the ground. You're not making compost, you're making soil. If this guide gave you some new ideas for your garden, subscribe to Hydrohaven, leave a like, and share this with fellow gardeners who are ready to ditch the shovel and let the soil do the work. Let's build better soil, naturally, efficiently, and sustainably.